Yeah. Hey, Sarah. Do you have the live stream for the meeting? Give it a minute. Okay, cool. We're going to live stream the meeting. There's some people that were unable to make it. Some people in Fort Wayne even. Yeah. So while we're waiting for that to kick on, you all know Gary because he did the introduction. Gary's going to handle a few things. There is some paper ballots going around. Have they gone around yet? Yeah, Steve, you want to pass those out? And there should be pins in the pews, and if the pin doesn't work, take it and throw it in the trash, okay? And then find a pen. There's lots of pens. And just to be clear, if you haven't become a member yet, we ask that you don't vote, but we're glad you're here. And new members class starts in 2 weeks. So, okay, Gary. Sarah, are we ready? All right.
Thank you. Good morning again. The first thing we're going to do is we're going to have two votes. The first one will be done by just raising our hands. Oh, you got to put it in your face. I apologize. Okay, we're about to have two votes. The first vote will be done by a hand count, okay, and the second will be done by a paper ballot that you're receiving now, and that will be for the trusteeship. The first thing that we are voting on is the Building for Faith Fund. Do all of you know what that's about? If you don't, let me know. It's basically, it's a fund other than current expenses to pay for, all right? And basically what happens at the Building of Faith Fund is that we keep half of that fund internally for the church for what it needs, and this is why we're voting on the other half. The other half is basically like a mission, who we want to give money to. Yeah. Okay. I'm sorry. I got it away from me. I tried to do better here. But anyway, the part that we're voting for now is for the mission. Okay. The first half of the Building for Faith Fund went to the food pantry. Okay. And the second half will be given away. We have two things that we would like to vote for, if you think of anything else, you let me know. The first is for Gleaners, and the second is for the Indy Pride that they have every summer. It's to rent a tent. The money would go for that. And does anybody else have anything else they'd like to put out there for something to vote on? It's just a straight donation to the Indy Pride itself. Okay, I thought it was for a tent. My fault. So, does anybody else have any other nominations? Yeah, go ahead. We all good to vote? Raise your hands if you want it for the Indy Pride. Okay, good. Thank you for your help. Running out of fingers. Okay, how about for Gleaners? Looks like Indy Pride. Thank you for that. Appreciate that. What I'd like to do now is just tell you what the job of the trustee as a person does. Trustees, the members of the Board of Trustees shall be elected by the congregation to serve for an indefinite period. Termination of the trusteeship may be effected by the congregation or trustee upon 1 month's notice. Duties of the board shall be limited to holding of property and shall not include maintenance thereof. The Board of Trustees shall consist of 3 members of the congregation in whom the real and personal property of the church shall be vested. Holding of property shall be in accordance with the Articles of Incorporation in the Constitution and the bylaws of Faith United Church of Christ. The trustee is required to manage the trust property in accordance with the trustor's wishes and in the beneficiary's best interest. The two nominees we have today that we were going to be voting on, is Ross here? Got it. Ross, if you wouldn't mind standing up. This is Ross Wolf and Angie McElroy. If you folks don't know either one of them, that's who we're voting on today for the trusteeship. So just take your time and take your ballot, and we'll wait for 5 or so the guys can come back and pick them up. No, I already got it. I think. We as a governing board, after we get done figuring out who is going to be our next trustee, we basically, our job is to only hold Scott accountable for what he does during the year. And in your annual report, if you picked one up, they're on the counter back there, we have a governing board evaluation of Scott. And a couple of the things that we really liked that I thought was a highlight last year was the Enneagrams. And we said his Love One Another series was an absolute success, using the Enneagram to help the congregation understand themselves and others by understanding our strengths and weaknesses. And our different perspectives really helped the congregation to get to know each other better. The small groups outside the shelter each week help people to reconnect, and particularly difficult time of separation because of COVID. We also feel that Pastor Scott has done a nice job mentioning the spiritual practice of giving each week. This is an area that we need to keep on the forefront, as giving is often one of the last practices people begin as they pursue a closer relationship with Jesus. We would like for him to continue mentioning the importance of the spiritual practice of giving on a weekly basis. We also are pleased with Pastor Scott's effort in the area of finding people to serve on the governing board and making sure there are at least 2 candidates on the ballot for the congregation to choose from on the voting day. We've had times where that didn't happen, and it's really nice to see, to get 3 or 4 names on there would be just super. It's a good commitment. It's 4 years, and there's a lot of challenges that go with it, but it's worthwhile. I really think so. And if you guys ever think about it, I know it's a long commitment, but you'll learn a lot. think they're getting close. You can't hear? Uh-oh. Put me on the spot, huh? No. The governing board members are Whitney Hull, myself, Brent Watkins, and Ms. Wolf. And Scott. Thanks for correcting me. Beth, thanks for counting, too. I said thank you for counting on the vote. Yeah, appreciate that. Thank you very kindly. Folks, this was a very close vote, but the winner is Angie. Pastor Scott, your turn.
Well, hopefully we'll be needing your signature soon, Angie. I just recapping this past year, one of the things that we did two things this past year that could have a long impact on our church that it pertains to the trustees. And that is that we voted to put our parsonage up for sale as well as to sell our cell tower. I got an email at the end of the week from Father Ryan, who, when he was the administrator, he was taking the lead on those projects. And the cell tower is looking very promising that we could come to a close soon. That's going to be very much needed because we have our cash flow has been tied up into our investments. And so I'll talk about those in a minute. But actually, so I don't forget, I probably should invite Tom. Do you want me just to say what we need to do, or do you want to stand up? So if you turn to page 10 of the report. Yep. So if you do look at that page 10, right in the center, there is all these investments. So the fifth third that he referred to is 525. Oh no, I'm sorry, 526. The Breathup Estate fifth third, and then the RBC is the 1580. So all that money there in the middle, that's basically our savings account, so to speak. It's tied up into bonds and stocks and that sort of thing. And some of them are on a rotation, so they come up where we can cash them out at various periods, and others we can, like the stock, I think, liquidate it whenever we need to. We have been living on savings for as long as I've been here, for even longer. That's our reality. We've talked about it many times. We're very transparent about it. We need to not do that forever, but we will this year and probably next year. So I'll talk some more about that. There's some good news about money, okay, that I have to share with you. But let's just recap 2021, and then we'll get into the money. So we started off the year. Oh, Tom. Oh, we need to pass that vote, don't we? Hello. Trying to let's get out of here. Okay, somebody want to make a motion? A motion that Tom can free up money as he sees fit. We got a second? Gary? All right. All in favor? Any opposed? Okay. Passes. Tom, do your best. Okay. 2021. We hadn't worshiped in person other than 2 Sundays in October of 2020 for like a year. Remember that? That was bad. Didn't like that. And we set a goal as a board, hoping that somewhere in Q2, like maybe in April or May, we could get back to worshiping in person. And we ended up worshiping in person 3 Sundays before Easter. So that was great. I start with that just to say that, this has been tough, but I do feel like God continues to kind of open up the door for us right when we need it. And I very much felt that way. I think in that May, we had our first, just kind of a hangout over at the shelter, even allowed people to bring a beer, and that was okay. And we just focused on spending time together, and I think that's, as we look towards this year, that's something we need to do. It's one of the strengths of our church. You meet anybody that's kind of new here, they say, wow, it's warm and welcoming. Anybody ever experienced that, right, when you were new? Yeah, I did too. And then I think that we capitalize on that natural kind of DNA by making sure that we're invested with each other. We had a few kind of next steps lunchish sort of things, but we really have had that program on hold. But anybody remember that program? Yeah. And that was more than just eating together. Spending time with each other, getting to know each other, makes it so that when people come to our church building, there is a church, right? People that know each other, share their lives with each other. So that's an important program, and it's something I would talk about going forward. But we did do some things. One of the highlights of engagement for the year, and I think for our church, was the kickball kickoff. That was really low-hanging fruit. Didn't cost us much money. We bought a bunch of hot dogs. It was a good program. And one of the best things about it was our adults played with our kids, engaged with our kids. And that is so powerful as a kid. If you're an older person, you can determine that by whatever age range you want. You need to know that younger people tend to really thrive when you give them attention. And so in my time here in this role, whenever somebody that's older than me gives me their support, like at our congregational meeting in November, I was talking about how we were projecting at that point a $50,000 budget deficit. The finances, they're better, but still a challenge. And I was like, it's been this way since I've been here. And then Angie Brumstrup said, nope, it's better. Some of the culture is better. Yeah, we have still a financial challenge, but something about it's better. And I was like, yeah, that's been lifting me up ever since that day. And so that engagement is key. You'll read about it if you read my report. There's a tension with engagement right now. And there's also an awful lot of disengagement. And it makes perfect sense, because at times we've been like, stay home. So it's hard to get engaged. We've seen good engagement with our food pantry, and then we've seen it kind of dip down as well. It's just hard for us. And so Sunday mornings, like all the roles that we used to have and sign up, we've kind of faltered on that. Some of that I think is my fault. I am very clear in my self-evaluation. I think my leadership actually went down last year in effectiveness, and by that I mean in the ability to recruit and empower others to lead. But also some of it was, just the challenge of COVID and just being in a pandemic and not knowing what's coming up. And also, I had a bit of a busy year last year. Got married, sold 2 homes, lived in 3. So, it's life right now. But I think figuring out that engagement piece and ways for us to reconnect. One of the reasons that we did the just fellowship time out at the shelter was we talked as a board, and I remember Angie had said, she's just like, I'm tired, and what I need right now more than anything is just to connect with people. And so coming into the Lent season, we're going to have an Ash Wednesday worship service. Hopefully you'll come to that. And then the Thursdays that follow, our big idea is to come and play euchre together or cards or what have you. Just hang out together. You don't have to learn anything. You don't have to do anything. You just need to come and connect with your church family. And that's actually serious business, I think, for us, because it allows us to build this community, because God is going to bring people here, right? In fact, he did last year. He brought Tony and Dee Dee. We didn't know them until June, something like that. Yeah, and they're fantastic. And so, God's bringing people around. We had 3 baptisms this past year. And so I truly believe that there's people out there that need to connect with our church. But our responsibility first and foremost, even though we as a board have made a decision to be outward focused first and inward focused second, I think in this early part of the year, we just need to connect with each other. Anybody feel that with me? Yeah? Who would come play cards or games on a Thursday night for like an hour and a half? Yeah, you can bring your own lunch or dinner or what have you. So that's one thing. Outreach last year, we did our trunk or treat. I think that there's real potential there, and we saw it the past few years. I mean, we get 150 people from the community without really much effort. And this past year, we had hot dogs, thanks to Michael Beal and company, and we burned through those really quickly. And people sat down and ate in our shelter, and we had a chance to meet with them. I think that that's how we begin to connect with the community. We get really good at eating with each other, right? And then we get good at eating with new people. And if that sounds too simple, that is kind of how Jesus did it. And in fact, the section of Luke that we're going through, sometimes they call it like the battle of the meals, and Jesus is at all these different meals. And Jesus was accused of being a glutton and a drunkard because he was hanging out so much. But we build the church one meal at a time. And so as COVID permits, I think getting back to some of that. So last year was a year. The highlights, we got to worship together again. We did some events that were fun. I'm so glad the board felt positive about the Enneagram series. I did too. I felt like people were coming alive. Some of the conversations we had out in the shelter were amazing. We brought back our kids program, although kids ministry is always tough. It's even tougher now because we really like the engagement piece. I mean, Beth and Ross and Brent and Helena, round of applause for them first. Anybody involved in that? They have no idea what they're going to get any given Sunday. And it was that way before the pandemic, but it's like that on steroids right now. And I think that, Elena in the nursery, we've just been like, hey, we need you there, and there might be kids, there might not, but she's been this consistent presence for us, so a round of applause for her too. Half the time it's just Jack, my son, in there with her, and he asked me if he's going to get to see his best friend at church. And when he comes here for the food pantry, he's so confused you're not here in the nursery. So that's kind of where we've been. We did some things. Christmas Eve, I thought, turned out really good. We tried some things. We tried some humor. We ended up with like the light of Christ from my new nephew, out of nowhere, and it all just kind of came together. So I think that the engagement that we had on that evening of all sorts of people, that leads into this coming year of just wanting to get more and more people engaged and up on the stage, put a microphone in your hand, do what have you. So those are some of the kind of steps. Let me talk money, and then I'll talk more about the upcoming year, and then we'll pray and get out of here. So this past year, we had 9 new givers that accounted for about $16,000. We did lose one big giver at the beginning of the year that gave about 18. So, but we had a bunch of new givers. As much as I wish we would retain all the giving, this is a really good thing because it's not just about our budget, but as you know, when you part ways with some of your money, that's a real act of faith. And our mission is to help people grow in their relationship with Jesus, to have more faith. And so giving is an indicator of growth. I really believe that. So this is really great. We had 2 major gifts. One of them that came at the very end of the year out of nowhere. So this is part of the reason that we finished way better. We had $162,000 of total income. We had really hoped to do, I forget, like 180 in the financial plan the year before. But back in November, we were thinking it was going to be like 148. This is the second best income that we've had as a church in 3 decades. So there's some good news, okay? So that's really good. That end of the year gift helped. Also, to help kind of bridge our financial issues at the end of the year, one of these funds gained like $9,700 of value at the very end. I was very confused when I looked at the finances. It was so much better than I thought, and so I called Tom up and helped me understand. So we had a $35,000 budget deficit. In November, we put forward a financial plan where we take the first 3 quarters and project ahead. We were projecting a $50,000 budget deficit over that. So $35,000 budget deficit, not something that I'm like, let's all have cake, but substantially better than 50K, right? We ended up losing $17,000 in total assets. Because of our investments gained money, we didn't lose $35,000 last year, we lost 17, so that's even better. Based on the math, we have about 180K left. You would find that on your page 11 of the balance sheet. That gives us about 5 years of financial life left if we lose 35K a year. Like I said at the last meeting, when I came here, we had about 5 years left, and that was 6 years ago. So this is serious. It's something we need to pay attention to, but it's also that part of the story. Today, the sending of the 72, don't bring a purse or sandals or what have you. That really spoke to me around, don't think you have to wait until you have all the resources. God is going to provide along the way. We have enough. We have our daily bread. We should have these honest conversations and forecast about money. We need to do all that stuff. That's responsible. But we have an opportunity right now to be the church, and we're doing it, and it works. It works. Any questions about this? Feelings? All right. It's not the best news, but it's better news than what I thought we were going to have. I met with our board in January. We talked about a lot of things, and we talked about what are our strategic priorities. They kind of remain the same every year. We generally try to have 3, so I put 3 and then snuck a 4th in there, but it fits with the 3. So first and foremost is our Sunday morning experience. It's what we just did this morning. So we're trying to enhance that by having Gretchen play piano, who was our former consistory president, and somehow I didn't really know that you could play piano. So this is a cool surprise. And having Steve and others sing to just add to what Jason does. Jason and I, we talked, and I think I shared with some of you. I think that last year our worship service was solid. I love that I can ask him to do something last minute, and he basically can learn it. So it's really quite amazing. It was solid, but it got stale to me. Got a little stale. And some Sundays it had to be the Scott and Jason show because of COVID and all that. But the more we can get people involved, I think that creates more energy. So sign up to read Scripture, or give the welcome, or sing with Steve or Jason or what have you. That's one thing that we're looking at. As we move out of the red on the COVID map into orange and yellow, somewhere in that orange and yellow, I'm hoping we can open the coffee bar back up, right? And just kind of do some of the things and have our New Here program and just really working on our Sunday morning experience, making sure it's just wonderful to come here, that you're here a little early so that when people show up, there's a church here. I mean, something you could do right now to really help is just show up 10 minutes early. Hang out with people. That really helps. Coffee will help that, I think. So that fellowship, I already talked about this Thursday nights in the month of Lent. We also are planning, I'm getting ahead of myself. I'll come back to that. So just wanting to fellowship, Michael and I haven't talked to you yet about it, but just trying to figure out when we can begin to do Next Steps Lunch again. And then our food pantry. Our food pantry, to me, it represents just a very tangible way that we are the church, right? And there's a need to grow it. And something that we did this past fall that I intend to do more of is reach out to other churches and try to build a coalition. And we could be leaders in that. We have the space, we know how to do it, and I think there's churches around. And we've developed some partnerships already. Some people have come, specifically the folk from Southview Wesleyan Church. Their theology might be different than ours, but they align with us on serving the community with food. And so no matter where you are on life's journey, we welcome you here, especially when we can do that. So I'm really hoping that with our food pantry, we can build that. We are looking at some grant funding because we have $7,000 of budget for that, and it's not enough. It just isn't enough. The need is going up, and especially with the child tax credit having come to an end, we think the need's going to grow. So up first for us, we talked about the Lent Fellowship on Thursdays. We're working on a registration for that. What we really need is some leaders who would say, look, I'll come, I'll open up the building, I'll host. I plan to be there on several of them, play cards, because I just want to hang out and play cards, but I can't be there for them all. But this would be an easy thing to do. So we'll do some sign-ups and that sort of thing. Hope you can make it. Something we talked about a couple years ago before COVID was to have a meal on Easter. Some of you have a long-standing family tradition of a meal on Easter Sunday. Awesome. You probably should go to that instead of staying for this one. But for the rest of us, what if somebody comes to church for the first time on Easter Sunday, which people tend to do, and then after church, we have a meal and we fellowship with them, and we have an Easter egg hunt for the kids, or we were talking about flying kites. I don't know why, but that somehow got on the agenda. But we fly kites on Easter maybe. We do something that's memorable, something that is thoughtful, and then we, also get done with it early enough that we can get home. And if you can make 2 Easter Sunday dinners, then you're double blessed, right? Need a nap. So that's something like I'm hoping that we can do and plan for. And so one of the things on my agenda is to set a meeting like this for those that would be willing to help plan for Easter. How do we make Easter just a great Sunday to be here for the kids, for new people, for us as a community? So Easter. After Easter, this is a working title, but I'm looking to do a series titled "Okay Boomer" or something. I don't know if you know about that meme, but it's to look at why are people, is there a rise in the nuns? I've talked about this before. I did a series, "I Love Jesus but Not the Church." spiritual, not religious. But I think it's something we need to continually talk about. Plus, my hope is that if you have a friend that has been hurt by the church or is no longer interested or what have you, this could be the thing to invite them to. Because my intention is to try to speak to those things. We're considering to see if anybody would like to lead a diaper drive around this time, because there's always a need for that. And then in June, after speaking with the board, I plan to redo the Mistreated series on homosexuality in the Bible. My hope is I'm a better preacher than 2017. I know for a fact our technology is way better than it was in 2017. And we know from quite a few people that series, because it's online, people have watched it, and that has been something that's been powerful for people to get connected and that sort of thing. So we plan to redo that. That's where the Indie Pride piece was, so kind of to Elena's question. We've already started to reach out to say, can we have a tent there? We did that a few years back, and that was successful, just to be more involved and extending that welcome to a community that has often felt excluded from the church. So that's something we plan to do, and then plan to use that sermon series as maybe a reason to market ourselves to the wider community. And here's the thing, and you all, I think, know this, but look, if you don't land where I personally land on that issue, that's okay. That's okay. The series is meant for us to engage the scripture and talk about the text in the context. Ooh, context. You guys were so great on that today. Thank you, by the way. Yeah. So those are some of the things. The board really said to me, they said, look, when you address some of those controversial topics, even though it makes us feel a little nervous, that seems to be a thing that people want to hear about. And so I figure I'm already starting to go a little gray. I might as well just take on every topic I can and go all the way. So, going back to this, in the midst of all this, something I want to get us to pay attention to is just the kids and family experience. So, when we did the kickball kickoff, does anybody remember the bubbles that we had up here? Yeah. You know who thought the bubbles were amazing? Renee, and then all the kids. Yeah, I got a photo of Renee. She was dancing in the bubbles. All it took was bubbles. That was so easy. So who would be willing to help out with, let's do sidewalk chalk after church on a nice day? Let's have just the bubbles. Like, if you went outside and blew bubbles with my son Jack, he would love you forever. And it's that simple. So what is the low-hanging fruit? Can we have face painting Sunday on the third Sunday in May? Why the third Sunday of May? It's because that's when the face painter was cheaper. We're just going to have a face painter because kids love that, or balloons, or what have you. We're a small church. Our kids' ministry folk are trying to do what they can in those environments, and that's wonderful. And then we, as a broader church, just to create a moment for them. So if you have ideas on that, if you'd be willing to help with that, go out and buy bubbles one day. We could have the little freezy pops in the summertime. My old neighbor has a cotton candy machine, which I could get if somebody would be willing to clean it afterwards. Whatever, right? So that sort of thing, right? Kids learn that God loves them by the adults who love them in the church. That's how it starts. And it's just being intentional. Okay. Church Center app. I hope you're getting annoyed about hearing about this. That means I'm doing my job. It's just a tool, but I think it's a really good tool for us in this season. And it's got the registrations. You can sign up to do a Sunday for bringing bubbles. We'll create a registration for that. You can sign up for the food pantry. You can sign up to come to the playing cards on a Thursday night. We have to create those still. You can view the directory and then call people here by name. Yeah, right? It's nice to hear your name. And we are working on adding the calendar so you know when everything's coming up to try to inform you. with COVID and all that, we were planned out before the pandemic like never before, thanks to Sarah. It was a big part in that. And then we had this whole bulletin board, and then COVID messed it all up. But we've been working so far this year to plan things. We don't have everything planned yet, but we want to put it on that calendar and get you involved. It's your church community, it's special. And this is a special time. I think people are going to be looking for a community like ours. So I think that's all I have. I want to just comments or feelings, thoughts. Ross. With prayer.
Yeah, there you go. Consider, we're looking for people that would want to just sit with the kids during that time. Get to know the kids. There won't be a whole lot of curriculum. You won't be teaching. It's not that situation. It's just we need an adult to sit in there and have a contact. Build those relationships. We need, because it would be both during Sunday school time, we'll have to get background checks and all those things, which is why I'm asking so early. But think about that and think of that during your time of meditation. And if you're all interested, get with Brent or Elena or Beth or myself, and we would really enjoy speaking to you about that. Thanks.
Thank you, Ross. Yeah. Others. Jason.
I work here, so I figured I should do this too, right? All right. Yeah, just a quick, I'm just going to do 2 minutes, quick blip update, because you're like, hey, he works here. What does he do? Why do we pay him? This was, when I was writing my little blip for the yearly review, it was challenging because when COVID happened, it was this just unexpected shift that, and I'm just speaking on the level of people meeting as a church and going to and from their daily lives, It was unexpected and unwelcomed, right? Nobody wanted to be inconvenienced from their coming to church, and so it did. It shifted kind of everything for us. We're just on our toes, It was how do we put something on the internet, And then we get something on the internet and we think, this looks terrible. And then we think, these people can't hear what the pastor's saying, So now we got to fix this and get this. And so those aren't necessarily the most exciting updates as a worship leader or pastor to give, to just go, we got a condenser microphone. It runs at 5 dB, and now we can hear Pastor Scott online. Praise God. It's not necessarily the most exciting update, Well, what is exciting is, even a couple weeks ago, I was working at the food pantry, and we sat and just were gathering in prayer afterwards, and those teenagers and kids were just out there. And I thought, this is awesome, Because, a teenager or a kid these days could, just be, on a Saturday, could just, be at home trying to, cruise their phone, But they're out there, learning to engage with people, which is huge, huge, huge. So I just want to echo, this year on a level of, trying to lead worship, it was a challenge. And we're looking forward to, gathering together again. Look at the stage, guys. It's crazy. And so I'll just give a little like disclaimer. I made a relationship with Traders Point Church over the past year, and I got us a rather large sound system. Some of this stuff is stuff that you don't see, you know? Like you come into church and you can hear the sound and maybe you just don't necessarily know what's going on. But they donated to us a rather sizable sound system, which was probably worth between $3,000 to $5,000. So big donation in equipment. We would not have had a budget to go and buy this equipment. So they donated it to us, and then it honestly ended up being more than we needed. And then once we remodeled this, we had to get rid of it. And so I was able to sell it, and it funded pretty much everything that you see up here. So it's interesting because when you look at this, maybe it looks expensive, you know, but it actually, praise God, like it wasn't. It cost us almost nothing. And so I would just, in encouragement, as you see all of this stuff up here, this stuff you see up here, I'm the kind of guy who, like, I don't want it to be important. When I started going to church, you know, like the church didn't look fancy or modern or anything like that. But, you know, this is interesting. Things like this, like it helps people connect. You know, we're able to maintain some semblance of tradition while we're also able to, like, enter into the modern age. And this church denomination, Scott and I have talked about it in the past, like, this denomination has struggled to, like, move into the era of technology. So these things are important, and I'll just give an example. I said this some months, it was probably last year. I was playing with my band at a large picnic. It was a Saturday. We got hired to play this fall evening picnic, like out at this super cool house. And this person came up to me. They knew me by name. I had never met them. And they said, "Hey, you're Jason Barrows, right?" I was like, "Yeah, that's me. How do you know my name?" You know, I've never met these people in my life. And they said, "Oh, you know, we've never been to your church before, but we watch your live stream all the time." Just like random Saturday at this person's house. And they're like, "We're really looking forward once COVID's over to come and visit your church." Like, how cool is that, right? Like, I'm not the kind of person, I don't really watch a lot of church stuff online. I watch bluegrass guitar players online. You know, like that's what I do. But just so you know, like your investment into the food pantry, into this, helps us continue to do these things. So I would also, just as I sort of wrap up, I would challenge you. Like, we need leaders in the church. Like, and if you are here, you are a leader in the church. So I would just pray that you find the thing that gives you joy this year, that you feel drawn towards. Find the thing that gives you joy and engage in it and, like, take it on as your own. Because the people who are working here day in and day out, we're doing a lot. And even Scott, like me, Sarah, Scott, we wish that we could do more. You know, but like there are times where we're really at the end of our bandwidth. Like we need the rest of the church. You know, so those young people need to see you out there at the food pantry. You know, and so whatever you need to do to, like, put it on the calendar, make it the thing that you do every month. You know, or if you feel more drawn to, like, serving and teaching kids, do it. So as I close up here too, I just want to say, this is kind of a beginning of the year, and, like, we made a lot of big changes. We actually had a drum set before you guys came here this morning, and we moved it off because it's not quite ready yet. But we've got a ton of musicians in this church. We have mandolin players, bass players. We have drummers in the church. Oh my gosh, drums in church. You know, we actually have people here who play drums and play other instruments. And so yeah, you'll see some cool stuff this year. I was just going to wrap up. There was something else? Yeah. Do you care if I go ahead and pray for us? Cool. As I close up too, for the worship services, if you guys have any ideas for, like, man, this would be cool to do this, I just want to make myself available. Please come up and, you know, if you have a song or anything like that, please feel free to come up to me and just let me know, you know. Because sometimes you may, like, with Gretchen playing piano, I didn't even know. You know, it's like, and Scott said, sometimes we just don't even know, you know. like if you have something that you think would benefit us as a body. So let's just bow our heads. I'm just going to close this up in prayer. Guys, thanks so much for being patient and waiting through these meetings. We know that they're the most exciting thing ever. Go Bengals. Lord, we just come before you, and we submit our church to you. This is your body, Lord, and we want to serve you this year, God. We want your kingdom to come, like you taught us to pray. We want your kingdom to come. So teach us and give us an open door how we can partner with you this year. God, we give thanks for your son, Jesus, and for his sacrifice. We give thanks for his love and for his glory. Amen.
Enjoy the Super Bowl. Huh?